Once upon a time, in a room full of wonders, where every step leads to magic and the journey of a true story begins here, with amazing guests and true miracles. Please like and subscribe for more amazing videos.
Oh, thank you for having me. It's an honor to be here. Yes, I have had four. Well, actually, this is the first time I'm talking about it. Uh, I, I've had five, but four are is the fifth one just happened. So I haven't really talked much about it. Um, well, what happens is I just slide out. It's very easy. Once you've had one or two, you just kind of slide right out. And that's what I do. Well, my first one happened when I was 13, and my mom took me to um, the Y down the road here in the town that I live in, and she wanted me to have swimming lessons. And so I had an instructor who wanted me to dive headfirst into the 10-foot section of the pool, and I just couldn't do it. Um, I watched all the other kids do it and they came out okay, but there was something that was telling me, this is not good. Don't do this. Don't do this. And um, I didn't know why, but I just could not. I would look at the water and just freeze. And so my instructor came to me and he said, you will do this dive or I will throw you in. And he put his hands around my waist, picked me up, and threw me into the 10-foot section of the pool. I just, I was in shock. I couldn't believe he did that. And I was fighting the water and just taking in a ton of it. And then finally, I had no more fight left. And I just floated to the bottom. And I'm laying on the bottom of the pool. And I wasn't breathing. But it was very odd because my spirit came out of my body and I was kind of hovering over my body in the water, and I could literally hear and see everything that was going on around me in, you know outside of on the outside part of the pool. There were two other instructors there and they were screaming at my instructor to to go in and get her, is what they said. Um, it was the woman who had the smaller children in the 2 and 3 foot section of the pool, and she literally said his name. Go in and get her. And then my awareness went to him, and I could see his face, and his face was like this close. And mind you, I'm under 10 feet of water, laying on the bottom, and yet I could still see everything. And his face was just, I mean, he was frozen. I think he was in shock himself. And his face was ashen, and his eyes were real big, and he couldn't, he just couldn't move. My mom was in a balcony clear down at the end where the babies and children were, and she was hanging over the banister and she was screaming, and she had this horrified look on her face. And yet again, I'm under 10 feet of water, but I can see this and I can hear her screaming, and the children were running around and they were just like, everybody was in a panic. And then there was this beautiful light while all this chaos was going on. There was this beautiful light, and I could see the water rippling, the top of the water, and this light, it was the most beautiful white. It and it was brilliant, but it didn't hurt my eyes. And I felt very drawn to the light because it was so comforting, and I felt such love coming through that light. It it was so beautiful. And here I am laying on the bottom, dead, and I knew it. I wasn't breathing, but I wasn't cold. I wasn't afraid. I felt comforted. I felt cocooned, if that, if that makes sense. Um, and that light just kept getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and I just wanted to go into into that light. Just let me, I was ready to go. And but then I heard what sounded like a metal door slam, and it echoed. Um, and the next thing I know, I'm back in my body, and I'm it's so painful. My chest hurt so bad, and I felt like I was throwing up water. I was coughing. What had happened was there was a lifeguard who had the middle-aged kids in the 5 and 6 foot section of the pool. And when my instructor did not move to come in and get me, he jumped in and he got me. And he was doing CPR. And that's why my chest was hurting. Um, and he got me breathing again. And um, and when I was okay enough, when I was aware enough, I saw my mom. She had come down and she was there with me on the side of the pool. But the funny thing about it is that we never talked about it. I had never heard of near death experience, that term. I didn't know a thing about what that light was, or who that light was, or where that light was. Um, it was just a subject that we never talked about because my mom was just traumatized from it, watching her child die. And so I went the rest of my life not knowing, exactly what that was all about. Um, and then the second near death experience happened when I was about 43 years old. It was in 2005. I was talking on a cordless phone on my back steps. There were concrete steps, and there was a overhang, like a roof over the stairs. And I was sitting there talking to my friend, and all of a sudden, it clouded up and started to rain. And we just kept talking. I didn't think that it would be an issue because it was a cordless phone. I didn't, you know, a corded phone would not work when there's a storm, but I didn't think much about it. And um, it did. I heard the thunder, and it sounded like it was in the distance. And then all of a sudden, there was this loud crack, and I felt this burning, searing pain in my right arm. The lightning, I could see it. I saw it come out of the sky, and lightning usually arcs. There's part of it comes from the ground, and part of it comes from the sky. Well, I saw, and it kind of meets in the middle, but I saw that that bolt come out of the sky, and it hit my arm, and it it after it hit me, it went through my body and left char marks on the concrete steps. But it traveled under the house, and it blew we had the electrical transformer in front of our house, and it just blew that transformer. And the neighborhood was without power for about 4 hours after that. Um, so the light after the lightning hit me, I'm feeling this burning, searing, agonizing pain, and it was only, a minute or two, but it seemed like forever. When you're hurting that bad, it's like, oh my God, you know. Um, but then all of a sudden it stopped, and my spirit peeled up out of my body, like peeling a banana. It just like came up this way and out. And I'm standing there and I see this body on the ground, but I have no feeling towards it. I'm just like, hmm. And then I don't realize at the time. It happened so quick that in my mind I had no idea that I was dead. It was like, I feel great. This is wonderful. No pain. I wasn't scared. I didn't, it was incredible. Then I walked into my house and I'm looking around inside my house and I look at the curtains and I notice that the lace curtains on the window, they weren't mine. And I thought, okay, this is weird. And I walked from the kitchen into the dining room and I noticed that furniture wasn't, it was a dining room. It was exactly the way I had set it up, but it wasn't my furniture. And then I go into the living room and none of that stuff was mine. And what was another interesting thing is that the lighting, it was all gas lighting back in the, like back in the 20s and 30s, the chandeliers and everything. It wasn't, they weren't mine, my modern day stuff. And I heard this old time radio playing and I couldn't figure out where the noise was coming from. It sounded like back in the days of the Waltons. And I was looking around and I could never find anything. We didn't listen to radios like that. And so I started to panic. And at that time, just as I was ready to lose it, um, this huge, loving, formless presence came and just kind of wrapped me up. I felt this huge love like I did when I saw the light. It was like that love it filled every pore in my body and it was just spilling out. It was just like I couldn't contain that kind of love. And I knew that presence was God. So, and he was so big. And we lived in a huge Victorian house. So and he was bigger than the house. And I'm thinking, wow, you know, he's huge. And so he just kind of wrapped me up and we didn't move up and we didn't move down. We moved sideways. And we started going through these very, very quickly through these pink and gold clouds. And they were gorgeous. They were just literally, I mean, I've never seen anything like that. And I love looking at clouds after storms. And this looked like it had liquid gold just lining the clouds. It was so beautiful. And so we're moving through these clouds and we get to the end of the clouds and there's this garden. And it's like we're at the very entrance of this garden. And even though this being was formless, he had I call him a he because later on he appears to me in physical form as a he. So he had he had a male presence to him. Even though I couldn't see him, I could feel him, and he was just huge, and just the love was just incredible. I've never felt anything like that in my entire life. Um, I've had people my whole life tell me, "You're fat, you're ugly, you're stupid. You know, do this for me, do that for me, and then I'll love you." Very conditional love and very negative relationships. But the love that I felt was total love, total acceptance. I didn't have to do anything for that love. It was just there. And as we start to go into the garden, there were these two beautiful men, young men, that came forward, and they were wearing uh, um, it looked like lounge pants. It was and a shirt, and the shirt was open, and they were barefoot, like they would walk taking a walk on the beach, is what they look like. And it was an ivory color, and for some reason, they wanted me to see the weave pattern of the clothing that they were wearing, and so they. Uh, Gave me a very close up view of the weave pattern, and it was a herringbone weave. And I didn't know at the time why that was important, but I thought, okay, that's important to you to show me that. I'll keep that in my mind, you know. So we're walking along, and they're showing me different things, and my awareness and my sight and all of my senses. I still had all of my senses, and they were so heightened, and I was so aware that I could, it was like I could see 360 degrees without turning my head. I knew what was going on back here. I could see it, but it was like I didn't have to turn my head to see it. Um, I could see very far distances with such clarity. I could see minute details, things that most people that you would miss, and um, the colors. I saw flowers. I heard birds. It was the most beautiful sound I've ever heard, and I love birds. And I saw flowers, colors. They were so rich and so vibrant. And there were colors you didn't even. I didn't have names for. I couldn't come up with names of colors, But I'd never seen these colors before, and they were so beautiful. Um, I saw buildings. My brothers were walking with me. Um, so I need to back up a little bit. Actually, my brothers were the ones that told me that I had died. And when they told me that, I looked down the front of me because everybody I saw had bodies. And I thought, do I have a body too? So I looked down the front of me, and I did have a body. I was like, yeah, I still had a body. And I still felt like me. I looked like me, only a better version of me. Um, I could see my hair going down the front of me. I could see my clothes. I could see my feet in the grass. I could feel that grass. I could smell that grass. It was it was so beautiful. Um, Also, when I saw my two brothers, it took me a minute to realize when I was 1 years old, my first brother passed away, and then when I was 2 years old, my other brother passed away. So I was a baby. I had never met them. I didn't know who they were. Um, but when I saw them in heaven, they were fully grown men. They looked like they were maybe, I don't know, 28 or 30, something like that, late 20s, early 30s. And what was so cool is that they had the same color hair. It was darker, but it had this color running through it. And it was curly, and it was, down to sh- uh, below the collar. And it was the minute they smiled, they looked exactly like my dad when my dad was a young man. And I was like, oh my God. We had this wonderful family reunion. And it, it was like, I kept telling him, Dad would be so proud of you. If he could see you now, he would be so proud of you. And you just grow up so beautiful. I just, I was just like, wow, and here I'm the older sister, right? And they were, I just, I, the reunion was just full of love. I just loved them so much and was so happy to see them. Um, but they did tell me that I had died, and I checked myself out, and I had a body just like everybody else, and I was kind of glowing. And I call it a light body because it's not weighed down and heavy like our bodies are here with the gravity and all that. The density of Earth is very different than what it's like in heaven. It's because there's no it's vibrating so high. It's so bright, so light, so airy, so beautiful that there's a huge difference between there and here. And here it's very, very heavy and very dense. And so I'm thrilled to death that I have this body, and I'm walking around with my brothers, and we're looking at all of these beautiful buildings. And they were on the outskirts of what I call the glorious city. And the city is behind this beautiful wall. Um, it's a golden wall, and it's very tall, and and the city is inside that. So that must have been my barrier. I couldn't go beyond that. That's where the city gates were, and I couldn't get beyond that. I saw the buildings that I saw looked like they were made out of this beautiful alabaster marble, but I could see minute details. I could see the the there were archways and pillars, and I could see the intricate carvings in the marble, in the archway, and how it was, and in the pillars, and how what I don't know what that was. I just know it was very intricate and beautiful. And I saw a place where babies and children go, and they're loved and cared for by great grandmas and grandmas and people who had passed on before. So they're loved, and they're taught and cared for. And I saw children of all different sizes and ages, and this place is huge. I mean, this place is enormous. It's like Toys R Us on steroids. So it's like they have and they're all laughing and playing and having a great time, and but they're being taught, they're mentored, and they're mentors and teachers and people who sign up to go be with the kids and just love the kids. And I learned that the children will grow up physically and spiritually to a certain point, and then it's all about spiritual growth. And then I learned that people who are, 80s, 90s, 100, whatever it is, and they pass, they become young again. So everybody is all around the same age, late 20s, early 30s. And um, I saw what looked like a beautiful, well, it was a spiritual hospital, is what it was. And it was for people who had died traumatically. Um, they died quickly, and it's very traumatic, and they don't know they're dead. So they're in this place. It's not like a hospital here on earth. There's not IVs and machines beeping and all that kind of stuff. It's they're they're there to rest and recover, and there are people there, mentors, teachers, guides, people specifically trained to bring these people gently to the awareness of where they are and what happened. And I find that heaven is a very gentle, very easy place. It's just so calm and peaceful. And so, these people are told, you died, this is what happened. You're here now with us, and we're going to teach you everything you need to know. Because when we die, we go from this plane of existence to another plane. And it's like walking. Death is very flawless, it's seamless. 1 minute you're here, your spirit leaves, and you're there. And it's just like walking from one room in your house to the next room. And it's not frightening. It's not painful. It's amazing. I walked around with my mouth hanging open, and it was like, oh my God, this is so cool. This is so cool. I kept saying, and um, oh my goodness, there's so much to tell. I heard music. Um, and behind the hospital, I saw these they were beautiful long pools, swimming pools, that the water was like living. It was like alive. And um oh goodness, I saw a building that looked like a library, and it had all these buildings were like on the outskirts of the city, so I could see what was in the city, but I was looking at what was on I mean, literally going into these places. The city, uh, there were other buildings there, streets, sidewalks, but in the center of the building, or of the glorious city, there was a circular building, and it had a golden dome. And I don't know what it was for, but it was really beautiful. It was big. And that dome, it was like shiny, a brilliant, shiny dome of gold. So my brothers are walking me around, and I'm seeing all these different things. I see a building that looks like, I call it the Hall of Knowledge, because it had books from the ceiling to the floor. Now, I don't know if they were actual books, or if that was a representation of a place of knowledge. So you go in there and you want to read about making wooden ships with sails 500 feet tall, and how does that work. So there's a book in there, and you learn about that. Or you want to learn about solar eclipses, or you want to learn about horses, or you want to learn about cats and dogs, or whatever. Anything you could possibly want to know, to learn about, is in that. You just take a book out and read it, or maybe it's a video and you watch it. I don't know, but it's called the Hall of Knowledge. Then let's see, I saw houses. Um, there was one that was sitting on a bluff. It was made of stone, and when the sun shone on it, it glistened in it with different colors. Um, I saw the water, the ocean waves crashing up onto the rocks below it. So I knew there was a beach, and I was just thrilled to death with that because I love the ocean. Um, Behind it, there was a house. Um, it looked like an English cottage, and in the backyard, it had the most beautiful rose gardens. And I, I kind of claimed that house. That's my house. um, there was another building my brothers took me to. Um, it- they were having a party. I don't know who the party was for, but we stood in the doorway of this building where this room was, and it had expensive paintings on on the walls. The floor was marble, and it had a blush pink carpet, and a chandelier, huge chandelier, probably big as my house, And there was a man over in the corner, and he was playing a beautiful baby grand piano or a big grand piano, whatever. Um, but there was a candelabra and a vase of roses, and the roses were spilling out onto the to the piano. And he was sitting there in a suit that had tails, and I noticed the tails. And he was playing. And some of the people, and there was a bunch of people in the room, and the women were dressed in these magnificent gowns, and the men were dressed in fancy suits or whatever. Um, and some of the people were dancing, some people were talking and laughing, holding drinks, whatever they were drinking. Um, I saw on the opposite side of the room, I saw on the right side of the room as I was looking in, I saw these tables, and they had white linen and silver trays that was loaded down with every kind of food you could possibly want. I mean, it was just, meats and cheeses and breads and pastries. And no, animals do not get killed in heaven. People ask me that all the time. No, God could, He can manifest anything, and there it is, just with a mere thought. So, if you want to eat meat, eat it. If you don't, you don't have to. Well, they have tons of vegetables and whatever else you could possibly want. I mean, it was very, I would say, extremely accommodating to just about anybody. And it was it was magnificent. It was just, and everything was served on silver trays. And I saw a man carrying a tray, and he had like champagne glasses on it. I didn't see whether there was champagne or not. It could have been water that tasted like it. I don't know. But people were, drinking and laughing and having a great time. And I thought about it. I tried to wrap my head around this, and I thought, when we are here in the flesh, in the body, here on earth, we have prepare meals, for family and friends, and we celebrate, and it's usually centered around some sort of celebration with food. And so I'm thinking, if that is what brings us joy here, why could we not have that there? And I know that Jesus talked a lot about in heaven we have a feast. We sit at the Lord's table, and we have we have a feast. And so it seemed like a welcoming party, but I didn't know for who it was for. I heard this beautiful music. Well, um, it doesn't what I saw look like meat because I eat meat, and there are people who don't eat meat. And so there was things there for people who don't eat meat. It was like God took care of everything. There was enough food to feed every single person. And it would be just perfect, whatever it is that you eat. I mean, I'm not vegan, so I don't know, but I mean, if you eat cheese or if you eat whatever it is you eat, it it's there, and no, animals do not get killed. There's no suffering in heaven. There's no murder. There's nobody kills an animal to make that meat, because God, I mean, he's the creator of everything there ever was, and all he has to do is think it. It's your thought that creates. And he thought, that's it. Okay, let's put some roast beef there and let's put some whatever, for the vegan people. He gives everybody, there's plenty there for everyone, and you can eat it or you don't have to eat it. I mean, I saw people eating and I saw people not eating. But I've been asked questions, well, how does that work? You have a spiritual body, and do you have to go to the bathroom? I was like, no, because your physical body is totally different than your spiritual body. You look the same, you feel the same, but your body's different. So no, you don't have to go to the bathroom. No, and um, the music I heard was so beautiful. I call it big music because it was like 5 or 6 orchestras put together. And I realized that everything had a vibrational sound. So the rocks that I saw the stream that was just like, it just lit up like diamonds. The trees have a sound, the leaves have a sound, the individual blades of grass, each their own living beings, and they have their own living, that vibrational sound. And so when you put everything together, it sounds like a huge orchestra and choir, and everything is singing praises to God. And it was the most beautiful music I had ever heard. And I was just like, oh my God. And then at one point, I started getting this download, or that's not even the right word. I felt like I had a IV hooked to me, and a giant IV bottle of divine knowledge and wisdom. And I started having these aha moments of, because I was learning who God is, what God is, how was the universe put together, what about all these people, and what about this, and what about that, and how does this work, and how does that work? And I found out, eh, once I came back to my body, I remembered it for a very short time, and then it started to disappear. But I remembered the feeling of bliss, the feeling of that sheer joy of, ah, I get it. I get it now. I understand. And I kept telling God, God, you're so awesome. You're so cool. Because we human beings make him so complicated, and he's not. He's very simple. And, but we humans have a tendency to complicate things. And that's what we do with God. If we could just see God for who he is, we'd just be blown away. I was just like, you're so cool, God. And um, let's see. Then after that, um, um, I saw Jesus, and he was coming out of a grove of trees that was close to the city walls, but down at the corner. And I don't know. People ask me all the time, what are those trees? Are they fig trees or what? I have no idea. Tree's a tree. But he came out of those trees, and when he came up to me, my brothers disappeared. I don't know where they went, but I was like, I looked up. Jesus is tall, and I looked up, and he was so beautiful. I mean, just absolutely breathtaking, brilliant, just beautiful. And he told me that he loved me and not to be afraid, that he would always be with me. And I thought, okay, cool. But I didn't realize that he was letting me know that I was going to be coming back. And that kind of went over my head. Um, I forgot to tell you that earlier on, before I saw Jesus, I did have a life review. And it was a black and white screen that came down. And um, my brothers were with me, and there was a whole bunch of people that came around. That huge loving presence was still with me. And he moved from beside me to behind me. And then I had um, Stephen on one side of me and Michael on the other. And then there was a whole crowd of people that came around me, and they were from all different time periods. I could tell that by the clothes that they were wearing. And I knew who they were, but I couldn't remember where I knew them from. And they knew me, and they were just there for love and support. I mean, it was just total love, total acceptance. No one judged me. I didn't have to worry if my hair was perfect and my lipstick was on and my, clothes were just right. And it was none of that. I just felt that it was so wonderful to feel accepted and loved just for who you are. And so, anyway, as I'm watching this screen, it was like watching a black and white movie on an old fashioned movie reel. And it was going real fast. I couldn't, I, it, I, it was me. It was my life. It was black and white. And it was me as a baby, me as a little girl, me as a little bit bigger girl, me as I'm growing up and I'm going, you know. And so it was from the moment I was born until that day that I was hit by lightning and died. And I watched it, but I made no judgment or any thought. It was over just that quick. And nobody said anything. And I thought, okay, that was over real quick. My life must have been pretty boring, you know, because there was just nothing to it. Um, it was, I didn't judge me. My brothers didn't judge me. This loving presence didn't judge me. The people around me didn't judge me. And it was just love and understanding, and then it was over. And that was it. And I had been raised to believe that God's going to judge us, and shame on you, and you did, he, the kind of God that has uh, sits in the corner of the sky with a big black book marking down everything we've done wrong. And that's not the God that I met, because I felt such compassion and understanding, and not one word was said during my life review. And so I'll go to Jesus. He's there in front of me, and He's magnificent, absolutely, and very tall. I had to look up. And he walked with me from where we were standing over to a wooded glen. And it was such a beautiful place. It had the tall pine trees, and the light was streaming through the pine trees, the openings. And there were pine needles and pine cones and these little blue flowers. And there was a log laying there. And so I sat down on the log, and there was a man sitting on the other end of the log. And then Jesus walked away. And so I started talking to this man that I realized was God. And because that big, loving, formless presence was this man that was sitting next to me. He had the same feeling, that love, that acceptance. It was incredible. And he asked me, "What would you do if it was just me and you?" And I said, "What?" And he said, "What would you do if it was just me and you? No parents, no friends, no teachers, no whatever, no nothing, just me and you." And I couldn't get it. And I mean, I'm sitting there and he's asking me these questions and they're just going right over my head. And I'm thinking, okay, this is a really big blonde moment. And I need to get, I need to answer his question and I can't. So he kind of smiled and he said, "Come with me." So we get up and we walk through the wooded glen and into, deeper into the wooded glen, and there's a clearing. And he waves his hand, and when he does, he opens up the sky. And I can see the vastness of the universe. I can see the stars and the galaxies, and there's different colors, the gases and the sparkling, the sparkling stars, and the planets, the spinning planets. And there was color. It looked rainbowy, just beautiful. But I realized it was so huge. This is huge. And there's nothing in it. And I said to God, I said, if it's all of that and just me and you would be so sick of me after the first 10 minutes with all my questions and chatter that you wouldn't like me very well. So no, I don't think so. And he threw his head back and he laughed. And when he laughed, it was like, it was the sweetest sound I've ever heard. It made me laugh. It was so contagious. And his eyes were sparkly. And he had blue eyes. God had the beautiful blue eyes. Jesus he had brown eyes. He had long, wavy, dark hair. He had darker skin. Um, God looked totally different. Um, but I also realized that God is spirit. God is not male. He is not female. He has no physical form unless he chooses to take physical form. And he can come to us at any time in our life when our hearts are ready. And he will come in a way that's specific just for you. And the way he may show himself to you may be totally different than the way he showed himself to me. But he had a message to give me. And if he'd have showed himself to me as a burning bush like he did Moses in the Bible, I would have took off running because I had just been struck by lightning. So he came to me as a gentle, loving, fatherly type figure. And he basically, after we talked, and He asked me what would I learned through the conversation that God is in everything. He made everything. He is in everything. And so when I'm looking at a specific thing, I am seeing God. I see God in people. I see God in nature. I see God in animals. I see God in the sun and the sky. I see God in everything because he created it all. It's his spirit is in all of it. And so that's basically what I learned. And then he asked me, uh, 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 what do you see when you look in the mirror? Well, because I had spent a lifetime of being beaten up by this world, I didn't have a good thing to say about myself looking in the mirror. So I thought for a minute, and I thought, well, what I really want to say is not something that I should say to God. So I said, when I look in the mirror, you made me, you're in me. So when I look in the mirror, I see you. And he said, yes, that's right. But, and he was so thrilled and so happy. And he told me, he said, I don't make mistakes. I don't make junk. I made you exactly the way I wanted you to be. Uh, you know, he was saying that he loved me exactly as I was, that I am the way he wants me to be. And I'm not here to please everybody on this planet. I'm here to do, he had a purpose for making me, and that's why I'm here. And he said, don't listen to the world, listen to me. It's my opinion of you that matters. It's not what everybody else thinks. Because I was running around trying to make everybody happy and making nobody happy. And I was exhausted. I was ready to go. But he had other plans and he sent me back. And here I am. And I remember so much detail that's incredible. The only thing I don't remember is the conversation about coming back. And it probably was not a good one. And that's why I don't remember it. I was not happy about coming back. I wanted to stay so bad. Because I have had some, my life, I have always said my life is more paranormal than it is normal. I've had some things happen that I'm just like, you have got to be kidding me. And it takes me a while to figure out what, and everything happens for a reason. There's no, I guess the word is coincidences. There's no coincidence. Um, it Everything happens for a reason. And the biggest thing is that we have to love each other. That's what we're here to learn, to love and be loved. And we grow spiritually. We do the most growing, and it's about spiritual growth within the human experience. And it's not always fun, but yeah, that was one of the things that I was taught while I was getting that infusion of divine knowledge. Not only how cool and awesome God is, but I learned about, because I had heard a male voice right after I had my life review. I heard a male voice say, "What you put out into the universe will come back to you." I had never heard words like that. I didn't know what that meant, but I was shown what that meant. I, you know, I, there's so much that I love. I can't even say I just like it. I love it. I love roses. I love birds. I love I I make bracelets, all different kinds, flower arrangements. Before I moved into my parents' home and got, I got ill myself. But I used to sit outside 2, 3 o'clock in the morning. Just, I just love that time of the evening, and I just sitting on my front porch, and these people would walk by, and they would ask me for cigarettes, and I would give them packs of cigarettes, or they wanted a drink of water, and I would give them 2 or 3 bottles of water. One night, a girl, she was so exhausted, and she was on something, but she needed to sit. She needed someone to listen to her. I couldn't understand a word she said, but I was shaking my head and I was giving her my attention, even though I had no idea what she was talking about. And finally, after about 2.5 hours, I told her I needed to go in. And so I gave her a pack of cigarettes and some water, and asked her if she needed a sweater or anything. And she said, no, I'm okay. And I, you know, uh, gave her a hug and off she went. But that's all she needed, you know? When you do good, good will come back to you.